At the dawn of another year, the globe faces a formidable array of issues, including the rising COVID-19 epidemic, the climate emergency, the battle between democracy and authoritarianism, humanitarian disasters, global migration, and transnational terrorism. The potential of new interstate conflicts is heightened by the breakdown of the rules-based multilateralism and the proliferation of lethal autonomous weaponry. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Thank you for joining us today. Today we will be speaking about 8 shocking things you didn't know are happening in the world right now. Stick to the end and watch the entire video to get all the details. Also remember to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell notification. Alright then, let's get started. Number 1. Climate changing rapidly. Climate change risks are increasing so rapidly that they may soon overwhelm both nature and humanity's ability to adapt unless greenhouse gas emissions are drastically curtailed. Few countries have escaped untouched. Heat waves exacerbated by global warming have killed hundreds of people in the United States and Canada, while floods have ravaged Germany and China, and flames have raged uncontrollably in Australia and Siberia. According to the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, climate-related dangers are higher for 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming than 2 degrees Celsius global warming. Our new climate predictions show that ongoing global temperature rise will continue, with an even probability that one of the years between 2022 and 2026 will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels, said the report's lead author, Dr. Leon Hemerson of the UK Met Office. A single year exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius does not mean we have violated the iconic Paris Agreement barrier, but it does demonstrate that we are getting progressively closer to a situation in which 1.5 degrees Celsius might be exceeded for an extended period. Number 2. Water level increasing rapidly. The sea level along the U.S. coastline is expected to increase by 10 to 12 inches, or 0.25 to 0.30 meters over the next 30 years, from 2020 to 2050, which is the same as the rise measured over the previous 100 years, 1920 to 2020. Because of land and ocean height changes, sea level rise will vary regionally along the U.S. coast. Over the next 30 years, sea level rise will cause a significant shift in coastal flooding by increasing tide and storm surge heights and extending them further inland. By 2050, moderate, usually devastating flooding is anticipated to occur more than 10 times as frequently as today, and local conditions can exacerbate it. Many factors, including rainfall, river discharge, wave impacts, coastal erosion, and existing infrastructure, can worsen coastal flooding. Current and future emissions are important. Because of current emissions, a 2-foot or 0.6 meters rise in sea level along the U.S. coastline is increasingly expected between 2020 and 2100. Failure to reduce future emissions might result in a further 1.5 to 5 feet, 0.5 to 1.5 meters increase by the end of the century. For 3.5 to 7 feet, 1.1 to 2.1 meters. Efforts are being made to increase our comprehension of ice sheet dynamics to estimate future sea level rise more precisely in response to ongoing emissions and warnings. Number 3. Desert growth. Desertification is becoming a common issue as climate change alters weather patterns, forcing people to live in hyper-arid environments. The Sahara Desert is no exception, stretching across 11 nations and destined to expand more. Deserts typically emerge in subtropics due to wind rising from the hotter equator. Scientists have discovered that tropical latitudes migrate at 30 miles per decade, causing deserts to develop. Indeed, rainfall data analysts suggest that the now dry Sahara has been expanding, spanning 10% additional land since records began around 1920. Extreme weather, floods, droughts, locusts, and violence already affect developing countries in the Sahel region. Dealing with these concerns at once is nearly impossible, and each exacerbates the other. Only until issues begin to affect wealthier nations do these feel compelled to act, and even then only slowly. For example, the state of Florida is being flooded by rising sea levels, but some in the U.S. government continue to deny climate change exists. The scenario in the Sahara is similar. Desertification could extend across the Mediterranean Sea into Europe during the next century, causing consternation among its member states. Number 4. Deaths in stadium construction for Qatar 2022. The World Cup is blood-stained, And if Qatar and FIFA do not answer for the murders of 1,000 of migrant laborers in the Gulf state, these men will haunt this year's event and all future ones, lawyers warn. More than 6,500 migrant workers have died in Qatar, a Middle Eastern country that has built cities, roads, and stadiums out of desert sand. Laborers frequently refer to their loss as slipping death because workers may appear fine one day, but slip away at night after working long hours in the scorching heat. The exact number of deaths and the cause are unknown, but human rights organizations have demanded that Qatar account for those who have died. Number 5. Decreased cancer. The American Cancer Society's annual statistics for 2022 have been announced, and they are encouraging. The combined cancer death rate for men and women had decreased by 32% since 1991, when it peaked in 2019, the most recent year for which data was available. As a result of a decrease in lung cancer mortality, the cancer death rate has reduced by approximately 1/3 in the last 28 years. That translates to about 215 deaths per 100,000 persons in 1991 to 146 fatalities per 100,000 in 2019. According to The Hill, researchers estimate that if the rate had remained constant since 1991, rather than declining, there would have been approximately 3.5 million extra cancer deaths over the 28 years. Number 6. Antibiotic-resistant diseases are a serious global health issue, killing millions. According to a large new global study, drug-resistant bacterial infections were responsible for about 5 million fatalities in 2019 and have been on the rise ever since. Antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections were also determined to be the direct cause of 1.27 million fatalities in the same year. The World Health Organization has identified antibiotic resistance as one of the most serious challenges to global health, food security, and development today, and has stated that while the issue happens naturally, human and animal antibiotic overuse is hastening the process. This resistance jeopardizes the capacity to treat common ailments, resulting in higher medical costs, longer hospital stays, and higher mortality. As per the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 2.8 million antibiotic-resistant illnesses occur in the United States, killing more than 35,000 people. Antibiotics are becoming less effective against the germs that cause many ailments, including pneumonia, tuberculosis, and gonorrhea. Compared to other public health challenges with similar or less impact, spending in the last few decades has been limited. Number 7. First ever national blood crisis in the U.S. The American Red Cross has proclaimed the country's first ever national blood crisis. The organization has cautioned the public about the ramifications of the organization's biggest blood shortage in more than a decade, including doctors being forced to make difficult decisions about which patients receive blood transfusions over others. According to the American Red Cross, it has less than 1 day's supply of key blood types and has been forced to restrict shipments to hospitals. At times, up to 1/4 of hospital blood needs are not met, the organization says. The COVID-19 epidemic has resulted in a 10% decrease in the number of people donating blood and persistent blood drive cancellations and staffing constraints. Number 8. Modern slavery. Slavery is a concept in which property law ideas are applied to people, allowing individuals to own, buy, and sell other people dubbed slaves as property. Enslaved people cannot leave this arrangement and are frequently forced to work for little or no pay. Slavery has played a role in practically every country's history and continues to be a major issue in many parts of the world. Modern slavery still exists in 167 countries today, affecting 46 million worldwide. In many circumstances, modern slavery is difficult to identify and recognize. Most governments have moved slavery underground, and the definition of slavery has broadened and developed over the last several decades. India has the most enslaved people per capita in the world. It is due in part to India being one of the 2 most populated countries on the planet, and in part to the fact that all types of contemporary slavery, including forced child labor, forced marriage, commercial sexual exploitation, bonded labor, and forced recruitment in the armed camps, exist in India. With almost 3.8 million enslaved people, China, the world's most populated country, has the second highest number of enslaved people. In contrast, China lacks the safe diversity of enslavement. Russia, Nigeria, Congo, Indonesia, Egypt, Myanmar, Iran, Turkey, and Sudan have considerable slave populations. Asia has the biggest total population, and the highest total number of enslaved people on a continental scale. Well, that's all we have today. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.